A royal princess, a granddaughter of the Romanovs, a bridesmaid to Queen Elizabeth. Yet, throughout her decades of service, Princess Alexandra of Kent only ever owned one personal tiara. How could this happen to a princess of the blood, especially when her mother was the glamorous Princess Marina? Behind the sparkle of her rare but perfectly chosen jewels lies a story of survival, strict family codes, and a deep devotion that created one of the most versatile jewelry masterpieces of the 20th century. Let's take a look together inside the jewelry box of Princess Alexandra of Kent. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Our story begins on Christmas Day in 1936, in the heart of London at Belgravia Square. Princess Alexandra's birth was a bright, much-needed moment of joy in a year that had otherwise brought unprecedented chaos to the British monarchy. Her grandfather, King George V, had died in January, and just weeks before her birth, her uncle, King Edward VIII, had abdicated the throne. As doctors arrived at the family's London home just before noon on that cold Christmas day, a trumpeter was playing carols in the street nearby. It is a beautiful, comforting image that marked the arrival of a princess who would spend her life serving the crown with that same quiet grace. Her parents, Prince George, the Duke of Kent, and Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, bestowed upon her a name that echoed with the grandeur of Europe's greatest dynasties: Alexandra, Helen, Elizabeth, Olga, Christabel. Each name was a thread connecting her to her paternal great-grandmother, Queen Alexandra, and her maternal grandmother, Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna of Russia. That final name, Christabel, was a lovely tribute to her Christmas birth, a name she shared with her aunt, Princess Alice, the Duchess of Gloucester, who also celebrated her birthday on Christmas Day. Her godparents were the newly acceded King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. But the festive warmth of her early years would soon be pierced by a profound family tragedy. Alexandra and her brothers, Edward and Michael, spent their childhood at Coppens, the family's country home in Buckinghamshire, and during the heights of the Second World War, Alexandra lived with her grandmother, Queen Mary. It was during this tense period, in August 1942, that her father, Prince George, was tragically killed in a wartime flying accident. Alexandra was only 5 years old. Princess Marina was left to raise 3 young children alone during a very challenging period in British history. Although the Kent branch faced relative financial constraints compared to the main royal line, Marina maintained her household at Coppens with strict, elegant standards and an unyielding commitment to royal duty, principles she had learned from her own mother, a Russian Grand Duchess who had survived revolution and exile. Marina ensured her children understood that dignity and responsibility were their true inheritance. These high standards of poise were visible in Alexandra from a very young age. Her very first public appearance took place in 1942, when she was just 5 years old, at the christening of her younger brother, Prince Michael. On that historic day, the young princess wore a small, rectangular brooch featuring 2 square-cut rubies surrounded by diamonds. Rather than letting this sweet childhood keepsake sit forgotten in a drawer, Alexandra would later have it converted into the clasp of a 3-row pearl bracelet, a piece she still frequently wears today. As Alexandra grew, she began to gently break the traditional royal mold. In 1947, at the age of 11, she became the first British princess to be sent to an ordinary boarding school, Heathfield School, near Ascot. Moving from the quiet world of private tutoring to a school with other girls was a significant step toward the modern, accessible royal she would become. That very same year, she took her first major step onto the global stage, serving as one of the bridesmaids at the wedding of her first cousin, Princess Elizabeth, to Prince Philip. This historic day cemented a lifelong bond of deep trust between the future queen and the young princess, paving the way for Alexandra's future as one of the monarch's most loyal allies. In June 1953, Princess Alexandra attended the coronation of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth II. She was only 16 years old at the time, which meant she was still too young to wear a tiara according to royal custom. Instead, she attended the historic ceremony wearing a pearl and diamond necklace composed of 2 rows of diamonds, with 3 pear-shaped pearls and 2 diamond pendants. The exact origin and ownership of this piece remain a mystery. One version suggests it might have been inherited from her grandmother, Queen Mary, who was photographed wearing a very similar piece. Another highly plausible version links it to the legendary collection of Grand Duchess Vladimir, with all the pearls having been inherited by Alexandra's grandmother, Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna. In the years following the coronation, Alexandra was determined to be more than just a glamorous figure at court. In 1957, showing her practical and compassionate nature, she trained as a nurse at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. Though she did not pursue nursing as a career, this hands-on experience deeply grounded her personality and shaped her lifelong dedication to healthcare charities. But as a busy young royal attending grand state dinners and debutante balls, she actually owned very few major jewels of her own. She relied almost entirely on loans from her mother's magnificent vault, which led to some of her most iconic early portraits. We see this beautifully captured in her famous 1955 portrait by Dorothy Wilding. Alexandra stands as the epitome of classic poise, wearing Queen Mary's diamond crochet bandeau paired with a gorgeous pearl and diamond festoon necklace. It is a striking image, but it is also a reminder of her early, borrowed brilliance. Every major jewel she wore belonged to Princess Marina. The delicate diamond crochet bandeau she wore in that portrait was a truly historic piece, featuring a Victorian base of round and lozenge-shaped diamonds, topped with elegant scrolls. Queen Mary had left the bandeau to Princess Marina in 1953, who frequently lent it to her daughter, most notably for Alexandra's highly successful official tour of Australia in 1959. But the fate of this beautiful bandeau would change forever in 1961. When Alexandra's elder brother, Prince Edward, married Catherine Worsley, Princess Marina presented the diamond crochet bandeau to the new Duchess of Kent as a wedding gift. It became Catherine's primary tiara, and Alexandra would never wear it again. Decades later, the Duchess of Kent would have the bandeau reconfigured into a pearl and diamond fringe tiara, permanently altering the piece Alexandra had worn in her youth. As the 1960s began, Princess Alexandra's role as a premier representative of the British Crown grew significantly. In October 1960, she was entrusted with a major diplomatic mission, representing her cousin, the Queen, at the Nigerian independence celebrations in Lagos. For such a historic stage, she borrowed her mother's pearl festoon tiara, pairing it with the magnificent pearl and diamond necklace she had first worn to the coronation in 1953. Although it is unclear whether it was her personal property or a family loan, it was a central part of her early royal look. It was a triumph of diplomacy and style, proving her immense value to the royal family. Princess Alexandra was also frequently seen wearing a certain historic family brooch, specifically Empress Frederick's pearl corsage brooch. Featuring an ornate diamond element with a large round pearl and dangling pearl pendants, this spectacular piece had an uncertain path. It is unknown what happened to the brooch after the death of Queen Sophie of Greece, but it may have been acquired from the Greek royal family by Queen Mary, Grand Duchess Elena, or Princess Marina sometime between the 1920s and the mid-1950s. Although the exact moment it entered Alexandra's collection remains unknown, it became deeply associated with her over the decades. In fact, she would wear it much later at the American State Banquet in 2019, a strong hint that it had indeed become her personal property, either as a special gift or a maternal inheritance. A particularly amusing story is connected to this brooch, dating back to June 1962. During an official visit to Sweden, Princess Alexandra attended a grand ball hosted by the Federation of British Industries at the Stockholm City Hall. For the evening, she wore her mother's diamond flower tiara and the cherished Empress Frederick's pearl brooch. Amidst the lively dancing, the heavy, ornate brooch somehow became unpinned, slipping away unnoticed onto the crowded floor. How terrifying it must have been when, in the middle of a grand royal ball, she realized the priceless heirloom was gone. Fortunately, a Swedish guest spotted the glistening pearl and diamond piece on the floor, picked it up, and safely returned it to the relieved princess. It was a lucky escape, and the brooch was safely returned to her collection. While Alexandra's busy public life was filled with grand occasions, her private life had long been anchored by a quiet, dedicated romance. In the early 1950s, at a glamorous ball held at Luton Hoo, the young princess had first crossed paths with the Honourable Angus Ogilvy, the second son of the Earl of Airlie. Angus, who was 8 years older than Alexandra, became her constant, trusted companion. Their relationship, built on years of mutual devotion, culminated in a secret, unofficial engagement during a quiet stay in Scotland in the summer of 1962. Immediately after Angus proposed, the excited couple climbed into his green Jaguar and raced across the rugged Scottish moors to Balmoral Castle to deliver the happy news directly to Queen Elizabeth II. Despite their eagerness, they agreed to defer the official public announcement of their engagement until November. This thoughtful delay ensured that her brothers, Edward and Michael, would be home from their military duties, meaning their widowed mother, Princess Marina, would not feel lonely during the initial wave of public attention. When Angus proposed, he presented Alexandra with exceptionally beautiful engagement ring featuring a cabochon sapphire and 2 diamonds set in platinum. In a touching nod to her maternal heritage, Alexandra chose to wear this ring on her right hand, following the old Russian tradition she had inherited from her grandmother, Grand Duchess Elena. It was a deeply personal gesture, though because she so frequently wore elegant gloves to her public engagements, the magnificent sapphire ring was rarely captured by photographers of the era. On April 24, 1963, Princess Alexandra married Angus Ogilvy at Westminster Abbey. For her walk down the aisle, she wore an elegant gown of Valenciennes lace by John Kavanagh, which was tinted with a soft magnolia hue instead of traditional pure white. Her bouquet was a delicate arrangement of freesias, stephanotis, and lilies of the valley, a gift from the worshipful company of gardeners. But the centerpiece of her bridal look was the City of London fringe tiara, loaned to her by her mother, Princess Marina. The history of this magnificent piece is shrouded in mystery, and its exact origin remains a subject of fascinating speculation. One popular theory is that the tiara had originally belonged to Marina's grandmother, Grand Duchess Vladimir of Russia, and was smuggled out of St. Petersburg in a pair of Gladstone bags during the Revolution. According to this version, the Grand Duchess's daughter, Grand Duchess Elena, sold the piece in exile, after which it was acquired by the Raja of Pudukkottai for his Australian-born wife, Molly Fink, before being purchased by the City of London in 1934 to present to Marina. However, there is no concrete proof for this full-circle story. Many similar fringe tiaras were circulating in Europe at the time, brought by families fleeing the Russian Revolution, and the true origin of the City of London's wedding gift remains undocumented. On her wedding day, the tiara sat straight on her softly waved hair, holding her mother's heavy wedding veil in place. The veil itself was bordered with old Valenciennes lace that had belonged to her grandmother, Princess Nicholas of Greece, and flowed gracefully down the length of her long train. In fact, during the wedding preparations, the couple faced another major challenge, one that had to be resolved before they ever stood at the altar. While Alexandra was a senior working princess representing the queen at state banquets, she owned no major personal tiaras of her own. She knew that after her marriage, she would be expected to perform regular royal duties requiring a tiara. However, as royal observers speculate, Princess Marina was of the opinion that a married woman's jewelry collection should be provided by her husband's family. Reserving the grand Kent tiaras for her son's future wives, Marina did not intend to gift Alexandra any major headpieces. This presented a significant challenge. Angus was a younger son of the Earl of Airlie, meaning he had no access to his family's historic estate tiaras. Knowing she would enter married life with no personal tiara of her own, the couple faced a unique dilemma. But her devoted husband was determined to solve this challenge before their wedding day. Ahead of their marriage, Angus decided that his bride would have a magnificent, versatile piece of her own. He commissioned Collingwood, the royal jeweler in London, to design a bespoke tiara. Rather than sourcing entirely new gems, Collingwood was asked to incorporate a set of precious diamond ornaments that Alexandra had worn in her youth. The primary components were 7 striking diamond flowers. The exact origin of these flowers is surrounded by 2 compelling family versions. One account suggests they were originally a small bandeau belonging to Princess Catherine of Greece, who may have sold it to her Kent cousins. Another, highly romantic version traces them back to Princess Louise, the Duchess of Argyll. In 1871, Queen Victoria recorded in her diary that she had given Louise several diamond flowers that had belonged to Victoria's own mother, the Duchess of Kent. When the childless Louise passed away in 1939, she left the majority of her jewel collection to her beloved nephew, the Duke of Kent, and his wife Marina. Whichever version is true, Collingwood took these 7 larger flowers, added 2 smaller diamond floral brooches that Princess Marina used to wear on her hats, and connected them all with an elegant, swirling structure of diamond ribbons. The resulting masterpiece, forever known as the Ogilvy tiara, was ready in time for her pre-wedding celebrations. In April 1963, Alexandra wore the tiara for the very first time at a grand pre-wedding ball hosted by the Queen at Windsor Castle, attended by over 60 members of European royal families. The true genius of the tiara lay in its incredible versatility. The center of each diamond flower was designed to be entirely interchangeable, allowing Alexandra to swap the stones depending on her attire, creating 3 completely different looks. She could choose delicate pearls, vibrant turquoises, or deep blue sapphires. Following her wedding in 1963, Princess Alexandra embarked on what would become more than 6 decades of tireless, quiet service on behalf of the British Crown. She quickly earned a reputation as one of the hardest-working and most approachable members of the royal family. Utilizing her previous training as a nurse, Alexandra focused much of her energy on healthcare, mental health, and international aid. In November 1966, she was appointed Patron and Air Chief Commandant of Princess Mary's Royal Air Force Nursing Service, a role she held with great pride. She also became the Chancellor of the University of Lancaster in 1964, serving for 4 decades, and took on the presidency of Sightsavers, a charity dedicated to combating blindness, alongside her long-standing patronage of the Guide Dogs for the Blind Association. Additionally, she served as president of the Alexandra Rose Charities, an organization originally founded by her great-grandmother, Queen Alexandra, to raise money for hospitals through the sale of roses. Whether she was visiting local hospices in the UK or representing her cousin, the Queen, on official tours across Canada, Norway, Italy, and Thailand, Alexandra's warm, empathetic personality made her a beloved figure worldwide. To support his wife in her demanding public role, Angus continued to thoughtfully expand her personal jewelry collection. To complete her convertible flower tiara, he commissioned a matching necklace, which entered her collection in the late 1960s, possibly as a gift for her 30th birthday in late 1966, as she began wearing it publicly in early 1967. This magnificent piece was an almost exact copy of Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee necklace, which belonged to the Queen, though it was carefully crafted without the central crown element that topped the original royal piece. Composed of diamond clusters around a pearl or turquoise, graduating to a central cluster with a dangling pear-shaped pearl or turquoise, the necklace was completely convertible. Alexandra famously debuted it during a grand official tour of Canada in 1967, and it quickly became one of her most versatile and frequently worn pieces, transitioning effortlessly from formal state dinners to less formal galas. In the late 1960s, Angus also presented her with a magnificent antique sapphire and diamond cluster necklace, linked with pave scroll elements. Alexandra debuted this gorgeous sapphire piece in the early 1970s, pairing it with the newly adapted sapphire setting of her Ogilvy tiara for grand events like the Queen's Silver Jubilee Gala in 1977. But Alexandra was also remarkably creative with her existing pieces. Since the late 1950s, she had frequently worn a tight, intricate diamond bracelet to her public duties. By the mid-1990s, she chose to convert this beloved bracelet into a choker by adding a multi-strand pearl bracelet to the back. This clever hybrid piece, featuring a geometric diamond clasp, became one of her favorite evening jewels, worn to state banquets for decades to come. The warm, stable era of her early married life was touched by deep grief in August 1968, when Princess Marina passed away. Her death brought not only immense sorrow to her family, but also a quiet, public curiosity regarding the division of her magnificent jewel collection. Princess Marina left her grandest tiaras directly to her sons. She bequeathed the spectacular Cambridge sapphire parure to her elder son, the Duke of Kent, while the Kent festoon tiara and the City of London fringe tiara were left to her younger son, Prince Michael. But Alexandra was not left empty-handed. While her brothers inherited the family's grandest headpieces, Alexandra inherited some of her mother's most historic and beautiful heirloom jewels. Foremost among them was Grand Duchess Elena's Romanov emerald brooch. This spectacular piece featured a magnificent cabochon emerald surrounded by diamonds, from which a detachable pear-shaped cabochon emerald pendant was suspended. Marina had inherited it from her mother, Grand Duchess Elena, in 1957, and Alexandra wore it with great pride. She styled it beautifully as a classic brooch, notably wearing it to her son James's wedding in 1988, and later converted it to serve as the clasp for a magnificent multi-strand pearl choker. Along with the emerald brooch, Alexandra also inherited Elena's historic pearl button earrings, which had been passed down from her grandmother to her mother, and finally to her. Yet, behind the grand court protocols of 1968 lay a harsh financial reality. The Romanov pearl bandeau was one of the few jewels inherited directly by Princess Alexandra. This exquisite piece was a wedding gift to Princess Marina in 1934 from her mother, Grand Duchess Elena, and its history extended back to her grandmother, Grand Duchess Vladimir of Russia. Alexandra wore the bandeau on an official visit to Sweden just weeks after her mother's death, and famously paired it with her Golden Jubilee necklace for a grand dinner party in Paris in June 1969. But by the 1970s, the financial pressures of the estate taxes proved too great. Princess Alexandra made the difficult decision to sell the beloved Romanov bandeau to a private collector. Through all the changing seasons of her life, Princess Alexandra's most enduring and profound bond was with her first cousin, Queen Elizabeth II. Their close relationship had begun in their youth, when an 11-year-old Alexandra served as one of the bridesmaids at Elizabeth's wedding in 1947. Over the next 60 years, she would serve as one of the Queen's most loyal allies, undertaking countless state engagements and representing the monarch globally. In 2003, the Queen personally recognized this unwavering devotion by appointing Alexandra as a Knight of the Order of the Garter, the most senior British order of chivalry. Following the precedent of Princess Anne, Alexandra was installed as a knight rather than a lady, highlighting her high status. Alexandra's collection contains two special treasures, the sudden disappearance of which has raised many questions among jewelry lovers. The first is the magnificent pearl and diamond necklace she had first worn to the coronation of Elizabeth II in 1953. Composed of 2 rows of diamonds, 3 pear-shaped pearls, and 2 diamond pendants, the piece completely disappeared from public view in the early 1960s, around the time of her marriage. Some believe it may have been stolen or sold during a period of financial transition, while another highly plausible version is that the piece was dismantled, its precious diamonds and pearls broken up to create other, more modern jewels in her collection. An equally mysterious fate befell the 3 magnificent diamond stars that Alexandra and her mother, Princess Marina, used to wear in their hair. These star pins, which perfectly captured the romantic elegance of the early 20th century, have not been seen in public for decades. Since Princess Marina was photographed wearing these stars in the years prior to her wedding, it is highly likely that she received them from her mother, Princess Nicholas, Grand Duchess Elena. This means that originally, the stars may have belonged to her grandmother, the legendary Grand Duchess Vladimir, before Marina brought them to England in 1934. Sadly, given the financial pressures the Kent family faced after Princess Marina's untimely death, it is highly likely that these precious stars were quietly sold at auction to cover estate taxes. In November 2016, Queen Elizabeth II held a special reception at Buckingham Palace in honor of Alexandra's upcoming 80th birthday, recognizing her decades of charitable work on behalf of the crown. For this milestone evening, Alexandra wore some of her favorite signature pieces of jewelry: her diamond daisy earrings, her pearl choker necklace with the geometric diamond and pearl clasp, and a 6-petaled diamond flower brooch. Interestingly, Alexandra would choose to wear this brooch to another very important family occasion, a celebration we will return to later in our story. This 6-petaled diamond flower brooch is remarkably similar in design to one of the most famous and sentimental jewels in Queen Elizabeth II's collection, her own diamond clematis brooch. Dazzling and elegant, it was famously worn by Princess Elizabeth for her official engagement photo call with Prince Philip in July 1947. Seeing how almost identical Alexandra's brooch is to this legendary piece, one has to wonder if there is a direct connection between the two. Could Alexandra's brooch be a precise copy, much like her Golden Jubilee necklace was a copy of Queen Victoria's? Or perhaps it was a thoughtful gift to match her cousin's favorite jewel. The story of Princess Alexandra's magnificent jewels is ultimately a story of family, legacy, and beautiful continuation. We find the perfect illustration of this in September 2021 at St. James's Church in Piccadilly, London. Flora Ogilvy, Alexandra's beloved granddaughter, stood before her family for a religious blessing of her marriage to Timothy Vesterberg. Flora had actually tied the knot a year earlier, on September 26, 2020, in a small private ceremony at the Chapel Royal, where she borrowed her grandmother's pearl and diamond earrings. For the larger 2021 wedding blessing, Flora walked down the aisle in a gown of timeless simplicity designed by Philippa Lepley. Resting atop her veil was the pearl setting of the Ogilvy tiara, loaned to her by her grandmother, and in her ears were the very same small pearl and diamond frame earrings Alexandra had worn to so many grand state occasions. Alexandra herself was in the congregation, watching with a proud smile, wearing her favorite pearl choker, pearl cluster earrings, and her diamond clematis brooch. It was a beautiful passing of the torch, a floral heirloom worn by a granddaughter named Flora. While Alexandra has largely retired from public duties, we still occasionally get to see glimpses of her quiet elegance. Recently, on April 21, 2026, the nearly 90-year-old princess attended a special reception at Buckingham Palace to celebrate the centenary of Queen Elizabeth II's birth. She honored her late cousin in a bright turquoise-blue ensemble, wearing her elegant pearl and diamond cluster earrings and a torsade-style necklace of seed pearls. For me, the life and the jewelry box of Princess Alexandra serve as a beautiful reminder of what true royal style really is. Her story proves that real majesty doesn't require a packed vault or endless cases of heavy gold. Having only one personal tiara to her name, she showed the world that with poise, unwavering loyalty, and classic taste, you can shine far brighter than those who possess entire treasuries. If you found this journey through Princess Alexandra's historic collection as touching and inspiring as I did, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel so we can continue exploring these fascinating archives together. Before you go, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are your thoughts on Princess Alexandra herself and her decades of quiet, steadfast service? And which setting of her famous Ogilvy tiara is your personal favorite? The classic pearl, the vibrant turquoise, or the deep blue sapphire? I am so looking forward to reading your thoughts and chatting with you in our next video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. After all, jewels may be silent, but their stories are not, and they will never fall silent as long as we continue to tell them.